Welcome, students. So, students, hopefully, we will start with this very important session. Ajita, hello, good evening. The first, students, will be the two case laws which I just wanted to discuss with all of you, which is something which I have told it to be one of the most expected case law as far as your examinations are concerned. So, I'll be doing that particular case laws with all of you. Very important case law, students, and let's look upon to that case law one by one. Before that, students, very quickly, I'll just let you know about this Unacademy, the iconic program, students. This feature is something that is unparalleled, unmatched in terms of its offering. So, students, if you see, Suchit, good evening. In terms of its offering, students, the iconic program, it's a flagship program of the Unacademy, and which you can see over here that the live mentoring platform, the LMP, which is coming soon. Kailash, good evening. One-on-one doubt solving would be available, students. One-on-one doubt solving facilities would be available. Evaluated test series. I think all of you are aware of what this evaluated test series would mean. 3 particular levels of test series would be given, students. 3 level of test series. And in the 3 level of test series, students, the students will be like 40, 80 and 100 marks. So that is a 3 level of test series that will be there. Printed books also would be forming a part of the iconic offering. Discord is a particular channel, students, which is dedicated wherein all the iconic students will be gathering together, and they will be obviously all the queries and all that will be looked upon. So that is what it is, students. If you see the price range, the price range is also very much not exorbitant with the kind of the offering and with the kind of the educators on the platform. You can see that the range that is there of the pricing is also nominal, whereby for the 12-month subscription you can have 28,500. Thereafter, if you see the iconic group 2 over here, same particular thing, doesn't changes anything. So it is also at 12-month subscription 28,500. So that is how it has to be. 24 months it is 1479, 36 months it is 1083. That is per month. Now that is what it is. Now you just, students, needs to do this code CADS. Thank you, Ajita. Thank you. With the CADS, and at 10% discount you are going to get, you put this particular code CADS and you get 10% discount, students. And that exactly is the point that has been there. Now, students, I am straight away coming to this case law, which I have told to all of you as one of the most expected, students, case law of your examination. So please understand the concept, students, because that concept is a real game. You have to ensure that this concept is well understood by all of you, each one of you. So the same question, old course, new course, doesn't matter. This particular RTP question which has been there. Now, one point which I just wanted to share a concern to many of the students. Many students are worried about the safe harbor, about the applicability of the safe harbor rules. Let me also give you a clarification. Just give me a couple of days time and I shall be giving you the clarification regarding the same, about the safe harbor rules which should be there in this regard. Now, students, have a look over this particular part, all of you. I'll be giving the clarification on the safe harbor rule. Just give me 2 days time. I'll come up with a clarification of that same. Okay. Sravan, ready? Now, students, let's look upon to this one by one. This question. First, let's read this question. The expected case law of your November attempt. The most expected case law of your November attempt, students. Let's have a look to that particular question. Student, this question looks to be very huge in this context. But still, like you need to read this question once. So there is this company, and we have to just understand. We have to just understand the concept here. Those would have been the case. Shravan, you just follow the date link. Shravan, follow the date link. You'll have the sequence going. Just follow the date link, okay? Now, in this context, students, the question is huge and gigantic. Obviously, I don't find that the question that will be there in your examination should be such. But it is always important to understand the background of the case. Students, here is a software developer. Here is a software developer who has the copyright over that particular software. The one would have developed the software. Now, like for example, Microsoft operating system. So the copyright on the Microsoft software is on primarily what will be on whom? Will be with the Microsoft company. All of you will agree to this particular point. The copyright on the same will be with whom? With the Microsoft. Isn't it? Now, let's look upon what exactly this particular case law would mean in this regard. So here is a Microsoft. What Microsoft does, students? So in this context, just a second. So students, what Microsoft will do? Just allow me 2 seconds, students. So students, first of all, let me explain you through that concept which has evolved. In a very simple particular manner, students, let's try to understand this concept of this software, computerized software, the standardized software. Students, first of all, the point that emerges in this case is that a very classic example which I keep giving to all the students, and I'll just share the same example with all of you. Consider this that I have entered in an agreement with all of you, or maybe this thing from my own book, which is there with Bharat Law House. So here is like I'm the copyright is original copyright is with me. So I would have given the copyright to whom? To Bharat Law House. And from that particular copyright, students, probably what happens is that whatever money that Bharat Law House will be giving it to me, that is a consideration towards the copyright. Can I say or can I characterize the amount which I'm receiving from Bharat Law House? Can I characterize that particular amount, students, which I'm receiving from the Bharat Law House as what, students? As a copyright, as a royalty income? Could it be considered to be a royalty income, students? The answer is yes. Definitely it would be considered to be a royalty income. That is point number one. The second point, students, and more important point over here would be that when Bharat Law House is giving these books to you, Bharat Law House is giving the books to all of you, at that particular point of time, will it be considered to be a case for a royalty income? Are you paying a royalty to Bharat Law House? Is that what you're going to say, that you people are receiving from Bharat Law House a royalty income? Is that what you're going to say about it? The answer is no. You are not receiving the royalty income from Bharat Law House. You are very clear on that. Now, what exactly is the situation? So, whatever the amount that you are paying to the Bharat Law House, for Bharat Law House, what it would be? Royalty income or sale of goods? For Bharat Law House, students, what that income will it be? Will it be a royalty income? Or it will be a sale of goods? Quickly, students. Will it be a royalty income or will it be a sale of goods, students? And the answer to that is indeed it will be considered as what? As a case of a sale of goods. All of you will agree to this particular point. This will be considered to be a sale of goods and not a case of a royalty income, isn't it? However, we are now the same way. Let's now, once you have understood the basic fundamental concept, now I want you to evolve from this concept to the next level. Let's look upon to the next level in this regard. Let's look upon to the next level in this regard. So the next level in this regard is that, yeah, Ajita, it is a sale of goods. Now the next level, students, which I can tell you is about the computer software. Students, generally we can categorize the computer software into two categories. One is the case for the standardized software and another is the case of a customized software. There are two types of software, students, that we all will find. One is a standardized software and another is a customized software. Now, standardized software and customized software, students, India has always an edge in respect of the customized software, like Infosys, Wipro, TCS. What they all do, they are in fact are the pioneers in developing the customized software, the ERP solution, the SAP implementation. That is what these company does. As against this, when you compare this with the company, what does Microsoft then do? Microsoft, students, primarily, as we all are aware, they are developing what? Standardized software or a customized software? Microsoft develops standardized software or customized software. How about, let me give you one more example. Tally software. Again, will Tally be considered to be a case for a standardized software or a case of a customized software? These are all the standardized software, students. And just imagine this. What happens? How the Microsoft primarily transfers its operating system from US to India. How does it do it? Student, this is how they do it. Point number one, they enter into an agreement. Students, they will enter into an agreement with a particular distributor in India. What is the right which has been given to the distributor? The distributor, students, will not be having the right to develop the copies. So it's not that the Microsoft is going to give you the master file, and from the master file the distributor in India is going to make up the whatever is the number of files. They are not going to do that. Whatever is the number of files for which they will have the key generated. So if I have got a distributor in India for whom I have generated 1000 keys, so that is it. You probably sell the software probably, and we will activate through that key. We will activate the software into the system of the end user. So you are the one who are going to sell the software for us in India, and whosoever is going to buy that operating system, they will first run that operating system in their computer. And once that has been done, thereafter they will be asked a key, and that key first would be that key, students, will be authenticated by whom? By Microsoft. And once they find that yes, it is a genuine key which we have supplied to our distributor through whom this sale has taken place to the end user, probably then in that case the system gets activated in your system, and accordingly those operating system accordingly functions. That's exactly how the modus operandi applies. So what does a distributor does, students? Is he just like Bharat Law House? Is he exploiting that? Does he have the? Is the distributor in India? Is he acting like a Bharat Law House? Does the distributor in India, does he act like a Bharat Law House to exploit that particular license that it has got? Do he or can he exploit that particular license and make n number of copies? The answer is no. That right. That right, students. That right is not available. That right is not available. So the right to develop is not there with the distributor. What about the end user? End user is probably using that standardized software which he has taken probably, and as per the license agreement, what he is supposed to do? Can the end user, can he do the copy of that particular license? And the answer is no. No photocopy, no such copy, no tampering will be allowed in this case from the software which is now installed in the system or the PC of the end user. And therefore that license is given only for the right in this case only for the purpose of, here the license has been given for right to use. That is what is the limited purpose. In fact, the Bharat Law House, good evening Karan, when Bharat Law House is selling the books to you, students, actually it's not selling of the books. What Bharat Law does, students, do you know? When he gives the book to you, he is giving a license to use the book. Okay, he is actually giving a license to use the book. Primarily, you are not supposed to make a photocopy. You are not supposed to resell these things. Those rights is not available to you. So understand the dynamics of the transaction. So accordingly, students, that is how things happen. Anyway, so here the question lies is that with the kind of the agreement that you can see between Microsoft and this particular Microsoft and distributor in India. So as I told you, if they have given the license to them of the 100 key, so they are being the distributor for our 100 key, which they will activate, they will sell. They will sell to whom, students? To the end user in India. And the end user to whom that particular the license would be given, they will be activating that particular key. They will be activating that software through that key in their system, and accordingly then they will have the right to use that thing. So therefore they have a right to use Just the way you people are the end user for the Bharat laws. For the Bharat laws, are you the end user? And the answer is yes. So what did you told that time, students? Is it a sale of goods from your side to Bharat laws? Is it a sale of goods? Yes, it is a sale of goods. Why it is a sale of goods? Because why? First of all, it is a goods. Please understand, it is a sale of goods. When I say the goods, it possesses the two important feature which make any article thing or a commodity as a goods. And those two important features are movability and the marketability. And the two important features are the movability and the marketability, based on which you can say that yes, it is a case of a goods and that right to use that goods has been sold by the distributor to the end user. How about Microsoft? Okay, so therefore this is a sale of goods. Okay, what about Microsoft is doing it? Again, so far as with the distributor is concerned, did they give them the right to make 100 copies from a single license, from where they can make 100 copies, and for each copy the distributor is giving to Microsoft a particular amount? Is that the way the agreement is entered? Answer is no. So there is no such license that has been given to the distributor to make 100 copies of it. No, those 100 copies we will provide to you. Let that particular copy be run in that particular system of the end user, which you have sold to the end user. Let that 100 copy get run in that system of the end user. And thereafter, students, we will be charging a consideration amount to the distributor. We will be charging a consideration amount to the distributor, and the consideration so received, in this case, obviously, is this a royalty? And the answer is no. This is not a case of a royalty. Again, can we say through the distributor they have done a sale of goods? Is it a sale of goods? And the answer is yes. For the Microsoft students, it is still a sale of goods. They are not giving a master file to the distributor so as to exploit the file to make 100 copies. So it is not a sale of goods. So whatever, so it is a sale of goods and not a case wherein there is a right which has been given to the distributor to exploit that particular software so as to make n number of copies so that they can be selling that copies to whom? To the ultimate customers in India. That right is not been made available. That right is not been made available, and therefore between Microsoft to the distributor, it is not a sale of goods. This is the background of this entire case law. First, this is a real concept, students. Now see what has happened. This is some very dangerous and notorious things has happened, students. If you see here, students, some very dangerous thing. There is a definition of royalty. This is way back 2012. In 2012, there was an amendment of Vodafone, wherein we got for the very first time the concept of indirect transfer. So that same year, that this particular definition under the Income Tax Act was being enlarged to to target the transaction between Microsoft and the distributor. Please understand here, you just pay attention to all of you. Microsoft, do they need of any physical presence in India? Microsoft, do they need any physical presence in India so as to sell the operating system? And the answer is no. So what we have seen, students, in the case of a standardized software, be it Microsoft operating system, be it your Norton antivirus software, any software now you can talk about it. These are the standardized software. So these companies did not have any physical presence in India so as to sell them. What they can do is that these products are so worldwide hit product that they just need to sell. There are many distributors who are ready to buy these particular software from them, and thereafter they will then resell that software to the end user through a license agreement. And that exactly how it happens. So in this context, the government got an eye on this particular transaction. The government then thought that such a huge sum of money the distributor is paying to whom? Such a huge sum of money the distributor is paying to Microsoft. And Microsoft does not make the single payment of tax in India. And why is it so? Because it is a business income for Microsoft. And if it is a business income for the Microsoft, then a business income could be taxable under the Act. A business income of a non-resident would be taxable under the Act only if, can you answer that? A business income can be taxable, a business income of a non-resident can be taxable under the Act only if the non-resident has got a business connection in India. The non-resident has got a business connection in India, students. All of you agree to this one? Yes. So, unless and until the non-resident has a business connection in India, you cannot tax that particular income. Unless and until the non-resident has got a business connection in India, you cannot tax that particular income. I hope that all of you are clear with that. What about royalty, students? Think about royalty as a definition. For royalty, do the non-resident require business connection in India? Or for that matter, permanent establishment in India? Or for that matter, physical presence in India? Or for that matter, actual provision of services in India? Are those prerequisite for the purpose of the chargeability of royalty in India? Are those the prerequisite for the purpose of the chargeability of the royalty income in India? And the answer is no. These are not the prerequisite for the purpose of the chargeability of the royalty income in India. So let us be very clear on that. For the royalty income, what is important is that the client in India who would have taken that particular services, he should be using, or he should have taken those facilities or those services in respect of what? In respect of students, the business or a source which is situated in India. So if those particular facilities or the services has been taken in respect of the business or a source which is situated in India, then yes, students, then yes, we will say that the income which is in the nature of royalty is deemed to accrue or arise in India, and therefore the actual place of service where actually the service was performed irrelevant for the purpose of the chargeability of royalty income. Where is the non-resident permanent establishment, physical presence, business connection? All these questions are also equally irrelevant for the purpose of attracting the charge of the royalty. So do you know the government in fact became greedy in 2012? Yes, correct. The government thereafter became greedy way back in 2012, and then students, do you know what these people did? They modified the definition of royalty income by introducing a dangerous explanation number 4, whereby they have twisted the definition in such a way that the software which is going to fall within the scope of royalty income is not to be restricted only for the customized software. It will now also be considered as a royalty income even if there is a sale of a standardized software. So in that case, Microsoft giving these 100 copies, which is the case. So this 100 copies for which the distributor is giving the consideration to the Microsoft, that as per explanation number 4 introduced in 2012 will be considered as what? Will be considered as a consideration towards the royalty amount. So students, there is a fundamental difference between the two. Please pay attention here. One is about the copyright and another is about, students, the copyrighted article. So here, in fact, please understand the distributor, actually what the distributor is paying to the Microsoft India. So the distributor is paying to the Microsoft India the consideration towards the copyrighted article. The consideration towards what, students? The copyrighted article. That is what they are making the payment for. Consideration towards the copyrighted article. But what these people have done over here, they have ensured that no, even the consideration towards the copyrighted article Although in the natural sense it may be considered like a consideration for sale of goods, but we are enlarging the scope of the definition of royalty so that now even the definition of royalty will include the consideration for the copyrighted article. The consideration for the copyrighted article. What is a twist in the language, students? It's very technical, but in fact I'm giving you the crux of everything, probably so that you should be in a position to appreciate the fine tune of this one. So everything which probably is being involved. So here, students, if you see, let's start reading this particular explanation. Explanation 4. So first I will make you read two or three paragraphs before I further make you explain it, and then we'll conclude. First we'll read now under the next two paragraphs, which is so critical for all of us, and then we will conclude our discussion. So if you see over here, the first amendment, so this was our first step, the amendment that has been made. As per explanation 4 thereto, such transfer of all or any rights includes the transfer of all or any rights, right for use or right to use a computer software. Right for use, students, or right to use the computer software. That is what this explanation 4 has done. Now, if you see here in below this part, be careful now. As per the meaning assigning in the DTAA with Singapore. However, royalty means what? Payment to any of any kind received as a consideration for what? The right of use. So this is what the royalty is, or right to use any copyright of a literature, artistic or scientific work. The apex court observed that where the computer software is purchased directly by an end user, a resident in India, from a foreign non-resident supplier or a manufacturer, the end user license agreement, which is EULA, does not create any interest or right to such end user which would amount to use or right to use any copyright. The license that is granted vide the EULA is not a license in terms of the Copyright Act, but is a license which imposes restriction or condition for the use of the computer software. That is what this limited purpose of EULA is all about. Therefore, there is an important difference between, this is an important paragraph, students. This is the important paragraph. There is an important difference between the right to reproduce and the right to use the computer software. Whereas the former would amount to parting with the right, the copyright by the owner thereof. So the owner is giving what? That copyright, he is transferring the copyright to you so that you can reproduce those goods, and therefore for each goods I'll be getting the consideration. That is what it is. So whereas the former would amount to parting with the copyright by the owner thereof, the later would not. The later would be towards what? The next part. So the later will not be considered to be, the later, students, will not be considered, students, in this particular case as the case for a copyright. Now further, under the non-exclusive license, the end user only receives a right to use the software and nothing more. Nothing more, students. So herein, in this context, in this situation, students, this particular part about which the end user, Shankar November 1st week mein, if the end user, if you talk about it, herein, he has what? Like you people are the end user, the students who have purchased the book from Bharat Laws. Are you the end user? And the answer is yes. What sort of right that you have? You just have a limited right to use. In this context, can you reproduce these particular items from that? Can you reproduce this particular items for that, students? To that the answer is no, you cannot reproduce those particular goods. You just cannot do that. That right is not available. Now please tell me one more thing. Can Microsoft approach directly to the end user? Again, the answer is yes. Even this is a possibility wherein the Microsoft as a company can approach directly to the end user. Even this is a possibility. So therefore, even in that case, does if the form of the transaction changes, where the Microsoft is directly doing a transaction with the end user, if the form changes, does the reality changes further? Does the reality changes? Can we say that the consideration that has been received from the end user to the Microsoft still remains the case of the consideration for the goods? Can it be considered still it will remain as a consideration of the goods? And the answer is yes. So it's just like students, just think a normal thing. There's a manufacturer, then there is a wholesaler, and then there is a final customer. Now the final customer does not approach to the wholesaler, he approaches to the manufacturer. Now what? For the manufacturer, is it still a sale of goods? For the manufacturer, is it still a sale of goods? Or just because that he has approached to be that the characterization will change? And the answer is no. The characterization still will remain the same. And that's exactly what they are trying to touch upon in this case. So again, friends, I'm putting across. So did Microsoft has given you the right to reproduce the copies? And for each copy pay Microsoft a particular amount? Again, the answer is no. So therefore, you have got only a limited right to use that particular software, and that exactly what you can do it. You cannot go the scope of your usage cannot go anything beyond this. The scope will not go anything beyond this, students. Now, if again there is an important difference between right to reproduce and the right to use the computer software. Whereas the former would amount to parting with the copyright by owner thereof, the latter would not. Under the non-exclusive license, the end user only receives the right to use the software and nothing more. Now let's read further, students. Accordingly, the Apex Court held that the amount paid by a resident Indian end user to non-resident computer software manufacturer. So whom they are talking about it? Microsoft to the end user. As a consideration for the use of computer software through EULA. That is, EULA is, again I'm repeating, EULA students is the end user. Yes, Shubham, I will be going to take. I'm going to take Shubham. And that too in early November. As a consideration, so accordingly, the Apex Court held that the amount paid by a resident Indian end user to a non-resident computer software manufacturer supplier as a consideration for the use of the computer software through the EULA is not royalty for use of the copyright. Obviously, that is for what? That is a sale of goods. And if it is a sale of goods, then it should be considered to be a business connection. If it is a sale of goods, then it will require the taxability in India for a sale of goods will arise only when it is what? It is taxability in India will arise only when there is a business connection in India. Only when there is a business connection in India. Is that clear to all of you students up till here? So please have a look to this one now. Now, hear it. So students, in this context, let's, before now we go to 92. So this is the Act versus the DDAA. Yes, Ajita. Act versus DDAA. Students, now let's come to the conclusion part. Now see how the things moves out. all of you will pay extremely high attention to this point now. Hear it. So here, friends, the Act and the DDAA. So what it is? Further, as per explanation 4, be careful now. Further, as per explanation 4 thereto, such transfer of all or any rights includes the transfer of all or any rights for use or right to use a computer software, including the granting of a license. This is what these people have done up under. Including a granting of a license, student. In this context. So the moment in this scenario, so obviously when you are transferring your all the rights, so in this case, like I have transferred all my rights to Bharat Law House in this context scenario. Fine. So Bharat Law House, in this particular context, whatever is the amount that he is paying it to me, that amount, will that be considered to be royalty income for me? And the answer is yes. So that is the real meaning of royalty. So that is, we don't have a problem with this. Where is the problem then in this case? The problem is including the granting of license. Even that is what they have captured in the royalty definition. Even that is what they have captured in the royalty definition. And by virtue of that, in this case, I have got the license. So in my case, I have got a license. License for what? License for using students. License to use the computer software. License to use the computer software. What they are trying to say in this case is the license to use the computer software. Will that be considered to be a royalty amount? And the answer is yes. And if it is considered to be a royalty income, accordingly, students, do you know what has happened? Sale of goods they have converted to royalty. The sale of goods they have converted to royalty. How about in this particular case of India Singapore? Royalty means payment of any kind received as a consideration for use or right to use any copyright of literature or artistic work. So in this particular context, this is normal thing herein. So in that case, the license is not there. So any particular payment herein which you are giving it for me to use it, like in this context, or right to use, but definitely not in the form of the consideration. So those are the payment would be considered to be a case of a royalty income. That is the normal case, but license is not included in the context of India Singapore DDAA. So now is the game here, students. Under your act versus your treaty. Under your act versus your treaty. So far as your act is concerned, it includes the consideration that you are receiving towards the grant of the license for the purpose of the use of the computer software. That also they are trying to capture this as a case for a royalty income. Whereas we have concluded now that all these licenses which are being given, that is only meant for what? Redistribution. Redistribution for the distributor, or if I am an end user, then for me it will be only for usage. So if the license has been granted, the license has been granted to the distributor. If it is to the distributor, the license has been granted for the further sale. And for the end user, the license has been given only for usage. But whatever is the consideration, whether it has been given by the distributor or it has been given by the end user to the manufacturer of that particular license, that is Microsoft, will that be considered to be a sale of goods? And the answer is yes, that is the general meaning. But as per explanation number 4 to section 916, what these people have done, as per the explanation number 4 to section 916, they have made that particular consideration to be considered as a royalty income. They have made that consideration to be a case of a royalty income. So here on one hand now, we have got a royalty income, and on the other hand, students, what is that we are getting it? On the other hand, Singapore Treaty does not capture license in the definition of royalty, because that obviously nobody could have envisaged that even what the end user is paying to Microsoft is royalty. What distributor is paying to the Microsoft, is it a royalty? No. Distributor, what it is paying to Microsoft would have been considered as a royalty if the distributor would have got what students? Got the license to reproduce. So if the distributor is having the right to use that particular copyright for reproducing the further number of copies, then the answer is yes. But if the distributor or the end user are having only the license to sell or license to use, will that consideration paid by the distributor or by the end user to Microsoft, will this be considered to be a royalty amount? And the answer is no. So the Singapore Treaty or any treaty for that matter does not consider the consideration towards the license of the software as a consideration towards the royalty amount. But thanks to our explanation number 4, it considered this to be what? A royalty amount. Now, if that is the case, students, it will be then hit by section 90. And 90, all of you are aware. How do you go about? Now, this is point number 3, section 90. So, for students, you will write in a simple word what is there in the Act and what is there in the DTW. In a very simple word, students. If as a student, if I have to write in the examination, how I'm going to pitch it? First point, I will ensure to write this, that students, the very first point which I'm going to ensure to write in this case would be that it will be that, students, that the computer software students, as per the Act, the consideration, the royalty includes, right? The royalty includes the transfer of any right, including the license, including the right to grant the license of the computer software. In a simple words, the royalty will include any transfer of right, including the transfer of the right for granting the license of the computer software. This is the definition of the Act. Point number 2, however, so far as the definition as per the India Singapore DDAA, as per the India, point number 2, simple words. You can copy down later on herein, or maybe if I can dictate to you, you can just write point number 2. As per India Singapore DDAA, the right, I'll dictate you, so simplifying this one. Otherwise, I do know that you will find it very difficult to put it properly. Point number 2, as per India Singapore DDAA, the royalty definition does not capture within its ambit, the consideration towards the grant of the computer license, either to the distributor, you can write grant of the computer license, which is restricted to its resale, by the distributor or a merely or a merely a license to use. By the end user. Full stop. Such payment made by the distributor or by the end user. Such payment made by the distributor or by the end user shall only be considered as a business profit and not as a royalty income. Right, point number 3, students. Point number 3 after this. As per section 90 of the Act, A always capital, students. As per section 90 of the Act. केस स्टडी बेस होगा विनाश, केस स्टडी बेस होगा. As per section 90 of the Act, the provision relating to the DDAA, or the provision relating to the Act, whichever is more beneficial to the SSC, shall be applicable. Whichever is more beneficial to the SSC shall be applicable. Therefore, full stop. Therefore, in the present case, the non-resident SSC, would go as per the royalty definition, in the treaty, since the definition since as per the treaty, the consideration under dispute shall be considered as business income shall be considered as business income as the absence of a business connection in India, as an absence of the business connection in India, as the absence of the business connection in India will not give rise to any tax impact, will not give rise to any tax impact in India. Full stop. Full stop. The treaty, last line, so please write this last line in a different context. The treaty makes it abundantly clear. You have to write this sentence in the exam. Abundantly clear that royalty that the characterization of an amount received shall be considered as royalty income only in respect of the transfer of copyright. So this is the most important word. Only in respect of the transfer of the copyright and not the copyrighted article. And not the copyrighted article. Again I'm reading. The treaty makes it abundantly clear that the characterization of an amount received shall be considered as royalty income only in respect of the transfer of copyright and not the copyrighted article. Right? Properly. Copyrighted article. So this is the first case law. Again, as I told you, the most expected case law so far as the examination is concerned. Please write it in the 3 to 4 points which I have made for all of you. This is the way you have to conclude it. I hope that these things are very clear to all of you now. With that now, I'll go to the next and again the most important case law so far as your examinations are concerned. This, students, is the case whereby you all are aware that the ITAT, before the Income Tax Appellate Authority, students, you should be aware of this point. Before the Income Tax Appellate Authority, students, the ITAT, students, as you all are aware, in this context, there are two things, students, which I just wanted to discuss or share with all of you. Point number one. The very first point, students, so far as the ITAT is concerned, is this: that first, before you want to put across the case with the ITAT, there is a fundamental or a precondition to pre-deposit the amount which is up to 20% of your tax, penalty, interest, etc. Whatever has been demanded or has become due to the income tax department because of the previous forum. So therefore, the pre-deposit needs to be made. I think that point all of you are aware, and everyone of you are aware of that point. Pre-deposit has to be made, 20%. Now, then only the ITAT is empowered as per the Finance Act 2020. Then only the ITAT is empowered as per the Finance Act 2020 to grant the stay. The first stay that can be granted by the ITAT is for a period of 180 days to the SSC. In the case where the stay cannot be disposed of within that 180 days period, in the case where the stay could not be disposed of within that 180 days period, do we have any further recourse? In this regard, do we have any further recourse? Again, the answer is yes. We do have a further recourse, students, that is to make an application before the ITAT for the purpose of the extension. And accordingly, students, the ITAT can grant the extension in this case, but the original stay plus the extension as per the normal provision cannot go beyond 365 days. However, now the question is that if the case could not be disposed of beyond 365 days, then what does happen to the stay? So the stay, will that be getting vacated? Whether that will be getting vacated, and the answer is yes. That stay, students, will stand automatically vacated. Students. Fine. However, do we have any exception to this particular rule wherein the stay still continues? Do we have any exception to this particular rule wherein the stay still continues? Yes, students. We do have an exception to that particular rule, and the exception, students, I think all of you are aware of it. And what is that exception, students? What is the exception? The exception on that particular front, students, is in respect of, please say, is in respect of the fact that if the case could not be decided by the ITAT within the 365 days period, if the case cannot be decided by the ITAT within the 365 days period, and what, students? And the non-disposal of the case, is not attributable to the gross negligence on the part of, which it is not on account of the SSC. SSC hasn't done anything. SSC has not taken such unnecessary adjournments, so as to delay the case. So therefore, it was not because of the SSC that the delay has happened. And if it is clear that it is not on account of the SSC that the delay has happened, then the Supreme Court, in this judgment of Pepsi Foods Limited, expected for your December examination, what they will say, that can the extension can be made further beyond 365 days? To that the answer is yes, it can be done, students. It can be done, and that is what they are trying to suggest in this case. My point to all of you, therefore, is to just keep in mind, this is an important one. Like COVID is a classic example which they are sharing it with all of you over here. The COVID is a classic example that they are sharing with all of you over here. And what is that example that they are sharing over here? As far as this COVID is concerned, no hearing could have taken place last year. And because of that very reason, what has happened? 365 days is already done and dusted. Because of that particular reason, students, the 365 days has already been over. So therefore, shall the further extension should be given to the SSC? And the answer is yes. This is the principle of natural justice. The principle of natural justice. Students, there is one more area where beyond that time limit, the time limit has been mentioned. There is one more area where the time limit has been mentioned, but beyond that also, can you go and get the extension? And the answer is yes. Can you tell me, students, what is that particular area where beyond the threshold time limit, you can get the extension further? You can get the extension further, students. Are you aware of that particular situation? Are you aware of that situation, students? That situation, students, is that double AR. Please remember, Can you withdraw the case from the AAR within that 30 days period? Can you withdraw the case before the AAR within the 30 days period? Yes, they can. Yes, you can withdraw the case from the AAR within that 30 days period. But if that AAR cannot, yes, you can withdraw the case from the AAR within the 30 days period. What about the case that if you want to withdraw the case beyond 30 days? If you want to withdraw the case beyond 30 days, can you approach to AAR for the same? Yes. If the circumstances, if the AAR is satisfied that the circumstances warrants this particular case, definitely the AAR students, definitely the AAR will entertain such application where the withdrawal is sought to be made by the SSC after the expiry of 30 days. Withdrawal is sought to be made by the SSC after the period of 30 days. Yes, Ajita. So that is the second case law, students, which has been there. Third case law, students, is an old one. I think, and third one is practical question, but this is the old one. All of you are aware of this also. So students, but still, since it is the RTP, let's respect it. Students, I am an SSC for an ATI reduction. So what has happened, students, is that my profit which I've computed, the profit which I've computed was 100. Or from that 100, I've claimed the chapter 16 deduction. And the chapter 16 deduction, I've claimed 100% in ATIA. 100% in ATIA. So ATI deduction was taken. Now what has happened is that the assessing officer in the course of 143, so this was all about the self-assessment. This was all about what? The self-assessment. Now as I told you, the assessing officer in the course of the 143, what that AO has done, students? What that AO has done. So the assessing officer, students, he has under 143, he has, students, disallowed certain expenditure and accordingly has made the assessment to 120. With a higher assessment of rupees 120, can you claim a higher? Then can you tell the AAR that look, if there's a higher income that has been assessed because of some disallowances that you have done it, which has resulted into a higher business income, then kindly also ensure that you give me a higher deduction of that particular profit, the higher deduction from that particular profit. So question again to all of you is that whether that higher deduction from that particular profit can that be demanded by the SSC in this particular case? Can that be done, friends? Whether a higher deduction from the profit because of the assessing officer in the course of the assessment, the assessing officer in the course of the assessment has made the assessment on a higher side, can that higher assessment of the profit, can that be considered for the purpose of a higher deduction for that? And the answer is yes. Yes, it can be. Yes, it can be. The reason is very clear, friends. The profit for deduction purpose, for deduction under this ATIA, this profit, students, is the computed profit. This profit is the computed profit. So whatever is the computed profit of that computed profit, even though that computed profit, it can be Ajita, because the profit here is the computed profit, and therefore the reason is that since it is a computed profit, accordingly, because of disallowances, if the computed profit would have been increased, because of the disallowances, if the computed profit would have been increased, then that increased portion of the profit is what will be allowed to you as a deduction. The increased portion of the profit is what will be allowed to you as a deduction. I hope that all of you are clear with this one. Now, since we are doing it over here, so if you see over here, last slide, accordingly applying the rational Bombay High Court ruling, CBDT circular would be entitled to claim deduction under India in respect of enhanced profit consequent to the disallowances. Question therefore to all of you students is that in the transfer pricing assessment, students, in the transfer pricing assessment, when you do a transfer pricing assessment, the assessing officer will also adopt the ALP. And because of the ALP, adoption, the profit increases. Because of the ALP adoption, the profit increases. And since the profit has increased, on account of the ALP adoption, whether that increased profit will result into the increased amount of deduction of this 10AA, the increase in the profit will also equally will result into how the profit got increased. That's the first question. How the profit got increased? The profit got increased because the AO or the transfer pricing officer has determined the ALP, which is different from the transfer price. And therefore, that ALP was being adopted in the assessment, and hence the profit of the SSC has increased. But at the same time, since the SSC was also in that business, the SSC was a 10AA category of the SSC who does the export. So what the SSC says is that fine, if you want to enhance your profit through this by adopting the ALP, then kindly do one more thing, that you also or consequently increase my profit as well. You increase my profit as well. So question again to you increase my deduction as well. You increase my deduction as well. So question again to all of you therefore is whether the deduction will it be increased in this regard? Answer, students, is no. The deduction will not be increased for the reason that I have already mentioned to you. Because what is the reason, students? In the case of the transfer pricing, what happens is that in the case of the transfer pricing, the fact that you have adopted the ALP, the AO has adopted the ALP. It does not take away the commercial reality of the transaction. It does not take away the commercial reality of the transaction. So what they have written, the fact that AO have adopted the ALP, it does not take away the commercial reality of the transaction, students. Full stop. And that's exactly how it has to be considered. Is that clear to all of you, students, now? All of you? Fine. Is that clear to all of you, students? So what happens in the case of transfer pricing, students? Always keep in mind, because of ALP, if there is a enhancement of the benefit that needs to be given, please don't extend that particular benefit in the transfer pricing. But in the other profit link deduction, in the normal profit link deduction, because of the disallowances, the question that we were discussing, if because of some disallowances your profit has increased, so that can you get the deduction in respect of the increased profit? And the answer is yes. You definitely can get the deduction in respect of the increased profit. I hope that all of you are clear with this particular point now. So please understand, disallowance which resulted into increased in the profit, and therefore the eligibility of the higher deduction has arisen. But if ALP is a reason of increase in the profit, then whether there will be an eligibility of the increased profit for the purpose of deduction, and the answer is no. One last point, students, before now, here it, students, I'll conclude on this one. One last point. That is about the case for, just you should just take this one also, because even this is covered by this proviso to section 92C. Just last one, say India, USA. And the USA non-resident AE, what they have done, they have supplied the technical service. So at say $100, whatever it be, on which they have deducted TDS, and the TDS under 115A at the rate of 10%. So TDS was being deducted 10 and 90 is what was being paid. 90 is what was being paid. Fine. Now what has happened subsequently? What has happened subsequently? Subsequently, what has happened was, herein, the assessing officer took the ALP as $60. They have said that your purchase is on a very higher side. The AO is of the argument that your purchase is on a very, very higher side, students. And because your purchase is on a very, very higher side, therefore he took with $100 as the base. He took with $100 as a base, students. He took at $60 as a base, suggesting that your profit is very high. Your purchase is very high. So because your purchase is very high, therefore he has taken $60 as the ALP. And accordingly, he has enhanced his profit and made him pay additional tax because of this adjustment between the ALP and the transfer price. But the question was not about this. The question is that the non-resident AE, students, the non-resident AE wants to take a refund over here. Refund in respect of what, students? The refund of the fact that he is of the opinion that look, this particular person in India, he has deducted the TDS on 100. That is to say, he has deducted TDS at 10 and given me 90. Whereas if you are now saying that the arm's length price should be 60, the arm's length price should be 60, then the TDS that he should have deducted should have been 6 instead of 10, and he should have remitted me 94. So therefore, since in my case there is an excess deduction of TDS, therefore he wants to file the return and wants to claim a refund. He wants to file a return and wants to claim a refund. Can he do so? Can he do so, students? File the return and claim the refund? To that the answer is no. Though he will not. Why? The fact, just merely because the ALP has been adopted, the fact that the AO has adopted the ALP, it does not take away the commercial reality of the transaction. And the commercial reality of the transaction is that you had the invoice being generated from your non-resident AE at $100. You have also made the payment of $100. That is how it has happened. So this is your commercial reality. Tax angle we will see, but is this your commercial reality of the transaction? And the answer is yes. And because this is a commercial reality of the transaction, therefore, students, therefore the TDS in this particular case, even if it is deducted in excess, will not be refunded to the non-resident. Yes, students. I hope that all of you are clear with this point. No confusion whatsoever. All of you are clear with this point. No confusion whatsoever. Is that fine with all of you, students? With that, now we are done with this, students. There is a last segment which has been there. If you want me to do it, I will do this last segment in the next one more lecture. So this covers up the practical part of this one, non-resident taxation, which I think I have not touched upon. So there is a last segment which is there. So if you want, I can just take across 1 hour session tomorrow and we can wrap it up maximum. So that is what we can do it. And once this has been done, so your RTP series will be all over, both in Hindi as well as in English. Second and more importantly, students, now I'll also be touching upon one session on the reassessment under 147 in Hindi and reassessment under 147 in English. So that reassessment is also on the cards. Last but not the least, students. Then thereafter, there are certain more things which I wanted to push further so as to make you exam ready. That point I'll just also announce it to all of you. Like for example, there is a but that I will be doing it through the special class. I am putting across to all of you my test papers in the next month. 4 MTPs we will solve it together in the class, so that your speed, your efficiency what you write, how much you write, and the marks that you can be allotted, or the marks that you can expect to be deducted. All those things could be discussed. That I am going to start, students, in the next particular month, wherein I will use my MTP as the base for the discussion and this thing in your next particular month. So this is again, that will be through the special class, students. That I'll do it through the special class, and I'll give you the details of the same in this particular Telegram channel. Some students have requested to me that what to do about the RTP of May 21. That I'll let you know, students, but more importantly, I will also give my clarification just in a day or two about what this all problematic concern of the students, which is in respect of the safe harbor rules. Whether the safe harbor rules to be done or not to be done, left or not to be left, all that thing, or if it is not to be left, how to do it. If it is yes, Ajit, I'll do that. If it is not to be left, then how to do it. So that, allow me a day. I'll just be there at your disposal, and I'll just guide you through, take you through, or run through that particular, the most important, the safe harbor rule principles. With that, students, now we all are through with this one in this context. Fine. So last, I just do one last particular. Yes, Ajit, I'll give the schedule. Don't worry, students, I'll be giving the schedule for the week before, so that you are prepared. Obviously, it will not make any sense if you are not prepared, because there I'm not going to probably be like, okay, we are giving you solutions. The solution will be discussed, but that will be discussed in a smart way. It is you, students, who will have to ensure that you are trying to solve all the part of that question which has been targeted, and based on your performance, students, we will evaluate probably for number one, whether you have the sufficient speed to complete the paper, and number two, probably what you have written, because what you have written, students, is the ultimate game, and what you have not written, how much marks you can expect to be deducted. How much marks, students, you can expect to be deducted. Fine, students. Okay, so see you there, students. Tomorrow, those who are asking, sir, tomorrow at what time you're meeting? Same time, 8 o'clock. 8 o'clock, students. YouTube, I'll meet it. I'll meet to all of you at 8 p.m. YouTube channel. Link of the YouTube channel, again, I'll just share with all of you. Tomorrow, I'll just have some extended session with all of you, so that I will have a very definite and exhaustive coverage. I'll have a definitive and an exhaustive coverage for tomorrow's session. Fine. At that, students, I'll take your leave.